Hello, my friends. I'm Dr. Julia Parker, urologist and senior health specialist. And today, we're going to talk about something that can change the way you experience health after 70, not by adding more appointments, more pills, and more anxiety, but by getting laser clear about which laboratory tests genuinely protect your safety and vitality, and which ones only create noise, worry, and treatment cascades you don't need. The title of this conversation says it plainly. What really matters after 70? Labs worth tracking and those to drop. I'm not interested in turning your life into a spreadsheet. I'm interested in helping you move through your day with steadier balance, clearer mornings, calmer evenings, and the confidence that you and your clinician are focusing on the numbers that actually change your outcomes. Let's start with a simple truth too often ignored. Great medicine in our 70s and 80s is not a hunt for perfect numbers. It's a craft that prioritizes function and well-being. Labs are useful only if they lead to an action that improves how you feel, how you function, or how long you live with good quality. If a test result won't change a decision that matters for your life in the next year or two, it likely doesn't deserve your blood, your time, or your worry. Early in life, medicine leans toward aggressive prevention and tight targets. Later in life, those same mindsets can backfire, creating low blood sugars that trigger falls, medication side effects that sap strength, or incidental findings on scans that pull you into procedures without extending your life. Your goal now isn't to be the best lab panel in the neighborhood. Your goal is to walk safely, think clearly, sleep well, and enjoy the people you love. Labs should serve that life, not the other way around. Here's the practical framework I want you to carry into your next appointment. Think of 3 circles. Circle 1. Core labs. Tests that consistently guide safe, meaningful choices for most older adults. Circle 2. Conditional labs, useful in specific situations based on your history, medications, or symptoms. Circle 3. Friction labs. Tests that often generate anxiety, follow-up procedures, or medication cascades with little to no benefit after 70 unless there's a compelling reason. Your energy belongs mainly in Circle 1, your judgment in Circle 2, and your skepticism in Circle 3. The first core lab is kidney function, serum creatinine with an estimated glomerular filtration rate, or eGFR. Kidneys gradually lose filtering capacity with age. Many common medications, blood pressure medicines, diabetes drugs, pain relievers, even routine antibiotics, interact with kidney function. A subtle drop in eGFR can turn a formerly safe dose into a risky one. Monitoring kidney function lets your clinician adjust doses to prevent drug buildup, protect your electrolytes, and avoid dehydration or overhydration. When we notice a trend downward, we examine blood pressure control, remove kidney-stressing medicines if possible, fine-tune hydration, and encourage a protein pattern that fits your needs. Protecting your kidneys is not just about numbers. It's about preserving the stamina to take that morning walk without feeling wiped out by noon. Standing right next to kidney function in importance is the basic metabolic panel, especially sodium and potassium. Too little sodium can show up as dizziness, unsteady gait, confusion, and falls, often triggered by a combination of diuretics, antidepressants, or drinking lots of water without enough salt. Potassium that's too high or too low can disturb the heart rhythm, particularly if you're on ACE inhibitors, ARBs, or potassium-sparing diuretics. These electrolyte checks are not academic. They're safety rails. They keep you upright, they keep your heart steady, and they keep you out of the hospital. Frequency should match reality, more often after a new medication or dose change, much less often once stable. The complete blood count, or CBC, is our third core lab. It tells us if anemia is part of your fatigue, breathlessness, or poor exercise tolerance. It alerts us to infections or inflammation. It flags low platelets that may increase bruising. When we find low hemoglobin, we don't reflexively throw iron at it. We ask why. Is it iron deficiency? Is it anemia of chronic disease? Is there a B12 or folate issue? Treating the cause, not just the count, restores energy you can feel. I've watched people go from napping through afternoons to strolling their block again simply because we identified and corrected a true deficiency. A 1C and fasting glucose belong in the core set for many, but with a crucial mindset shift. In frail older adults, pushing A1C to tight targets, under 7.0, often causes dangerous lows, shakiness, confusion, night sweats, and falls. A safer range, individualized to your health and life expectancy, often lives in the high 7s or even the 8s if it prevents hypoglycemia. The goal is stability, not perfection. Gentle adjustments, fewer medications at prudent doses, meals with protein and fiber, a short walk after lunch, do more for your safety than chasing a textbook target. When A1C guides that balance, it's a valuable test. When it becomes a scoreboard that ignores your risk of lows, it loses the plot. Thyroid function, usually a TSH and free T4 when needed, earns a place in the core set if you have thyroid disease or symptoms like palpitations, unexplained weight change, constipation, or persistent fatigue. Older adults are especially sensitive to over-replacement. A dose that's a little too high can thin bones, stir up irregular heart rhythms, and ruin sleep. That's why we avoid autopilot refills. We recheck at sensible intervals and right-size the dose. Feeling steady is the goal. A perfect TSH that leaves you anxious at night is not a victory. Vitamin B12 deserves more attention than it usually gets. Absorption declines with age, and medications like metformin or acid reducers can lower B12 over time. Borderline B12 can look like memory slips, numb feet, poor balance, or unexplained fatigue. Correcting a real B12 deficiency is one of the most gratifying interventions in later life. A simple supplement or periodic injections can lift energy, improve gait confidence, and sharpen thinking. Not everyone needs it every year, but if neuropathy, cognitive changes, or risk factors are in the picture, B12 is a high-value check. A quiet but powerful core test for people with diabetes or high blood pressure is the urine albumin to creatinine ratio. It often detects early kidney stress before creatinine changes. If elevated, we double-check blood pressure targets, consider renoprotective medications when appropriate, and pay attention to salt and hydration. That small test can translate into years of preserved kidney function, which translates into independence you can feel. Now, what about lipids? If you've already had a heart attack, stent, or stroke, lipid levels can guide therapy that makes a meaningful difference. If you haven't, and other conditions set a shorter horizon, chasing perfect LDL with medications that cause muscle pain or weakness may not buy you better days. In that situation, a lipid panel is conditional, not automatic. It's valuable when its result would change a choice, like simplifying a regimen to reduce side effects, rather than when it's checked reflexively because we've always done it. Let's move to Circle 2, the conditional labs that matter in context. Vitamin D is useful when there's osteoporosis, minimal sun exposure, frequent falls, or a history of fractures. The purpose is to identify deficiency and support bone health with a moderate daily dose alongside strength and balance training. Checking it every few weeks is overkill. Smart habits and sensible dosing beat repeat blood draws. Iron studies, ferritin, iron, binding capacity, are valuable when the CBC signals anemia or when symptoms point to it. They are not a monthly hobby. Oversupplementing iron can create constipation and gut upset without solving the cause. Liver enzymes, AST, ALT, alkaline phosphatase, bilirubin, are appropriate when starting or adjusting liver-metabolized medications, or when symptoms or alcohol use warrant it. Without those triggers, repeating them on a schedule just invites false alarms and incidental findings. Inflammation markers like CRP or ESR can help diagnose or monitor specific inflammatory conditions, but they're not wellness trackers. Elevated CRP without a clear clinical picture leads to speculation. Dental issues, minor infections, lack of sleep, or arthritis can all nudge it up. If your clinician suspects polymyalgia rheumatica or a vasculitis, these markers are useful. Otherwise, they generate more questions than answers. Hormone panels, testosterone, estradiol, DHEA, deserve restraint. If there are targeted symptoms that persist despite good sleep, nutrition, and activity, a carefully interpreted panel may help. But tinkering for the sake of numbers often invites side effects that sap energy or complicate the prostate or heart. For confidence, circulation, and mood, daily habits are the most reliable hormone therapy. Walk, lift light weights twice a week, hydrate consistently, sleep in rhythm, and maintain warm social contact. Now circle 3, the friction labs to drop or reserve for symptom-driven decisions. Routine. PSA screening after 70 leads many men into biopsies, infections, and treatments for slow-growing cancers that would never have affected their lifespan. If urinary symptoms arise, if a clinician detects a concerning nodule, or if there's a specific reason, we evaluate thoughtfully. Otherwise, routine PSA checks become a doorway to procedures with little to gain. Routine urinalysis in people without urinary symptoms is another trap. Asymptomatic bacteriuria is common and usually harmless. Treating it breeds antibiotic side effects and resistance. We test urine when the story points there: burning, urgency, fever, back pain, not because the calendar does. Tumor markers like CEA or CA125 should not be used as general cancer screens. They are notorious for false positives that spark scans and biopsies without improving outcomes. They can be useful for monitoring known cancers under specialist care. As screening for a person who feels well, they tend to harm more than help. Broad autoimmune panels without a clinical suspicion, ANAs, ENAs, rheumatoid factors, frequently produce low-level positives in healthy older adults. Chasing those results triggers referrals, steroids, and side effects in search of a disease that isn't there. Use them when symptoms warrant. Otherwise, skip the fishing expedition. Let me translate all this into a simple cadence you can live with. If your health is stable, twice yearly is often enough for a basic metabolic panel and CBC. If you have diabetes, add an A1C once or twice a year and a urine albumin to creatinine ratio annually. If you take thyroid medication, check TSH every 6 to 12 months once your dose is steady. If you have B12 risk factors or symptoms, check it annually, otherwise every couple of years or as indicated. Lipids every year or two if the result will change a decision. Outside those, test for reasons, not rituals. After a medication change that could affect kidneys or electrolytes, recheck in 2 to 4 weeks. After a stable period with no changes, stretch the interval. If you feel well and nothing has shifted, enjoy the freedom of not testing. I want to equip you with language that changes your appointments. When a lab is proposed, ask, if this number is high or low, what specific action will we take that improves how I feel or function within the next year? If the answer is vague, the test may be elective. Ask, given my age and health, what interval keeps me safe without over-testing? You'll be surprised how often the schedule shrinks. Ask, which of my labs can we stop because they haven't changed our decisions? You'll discover you're carrying results that no longer earn their place. And anchor every conversation in what matters to you. My priorities are steady walking, good mornings, and calm evenings. Which labs support those goals? That reorients medicine back to your life. Stories bring this home. A 78-year-old retired teacher came to me with a folder full of panels from a boutique clinic: hormones, tumor markers, age clocks, and genetics. She was exhausted and unsteady. No one had checked her sodium after starting a diuretic and an antidepressant, and no one had measured B12 despite tingling in her feet. We simplified medications with her primary clinician, ordered a targeted set of labs, and found mild hyponatremia and low normal B12. With a small medication adjustment, modest salt in her hydration plan, and a B12 supplement, her steadiness returned. The expensive panels didn't improve her days. 2 basic core tests did. An 82-year-old engineer tracked LDL like a competitive sport and took 3 lipid-lowering agents. He complained of leg heaviness and stopped gardening. His labs looked excellent, but his life was shrinking. We discussed goals. He wanted to walk the botanical garden with his granddaughter without wobbling. We simplified his lipid regimen after reviewing risks and benefits, checked a muscle enzyme to be safe, and focused on leg strength and protein with each meal. We stopped monthly lipid checks and gave the muscles time to heal. 3 months later, he sent a photo from the garden. The win wasn't a number, it was his stride. A 76-year-old with long-standing hypothyroidism had night palpitations and fragile sleep. Her TSH sat at the low end of normal, acceptable on paper, too aggressive for her heart and bones. We nudged the dose down and rechecked in 8 weeks. The palpitations quieted. She slept more deeply, and her bone density stabilized. That's the essence of late-life medicine: modest adjustments that pay you back every day. Food and movement reinforce the labs that matter. Protein with each meal supports hemoglobin and muscle. Hydration with a touch of salt, if your sodium tends to run low, improves balance and morning clarity. 10 minutes of walking after your main meal flattens glucose swings better than extra medication in many cases. Short strength sets for legs, sit to stand from a chair, gentle heel raises at the counter, do more for fall prevention than any lab order. Daylight in the morning nudges sleep rhythms that steady blood pressure and mood. These are not platitudes, they are biology applied wisely. Labs should confirm the direction these habits are taking you, not replace them. Let's talk about when to stop. A small thyroid nodule that hasn't changed in years does not need endless ultrasounds. A once low vitamin D that is now stable on a simple daily dose doesn't need quarterly rechecks. A mildly elevated liver enzyme that normalized after a medication change doesn't require monthly surveillance. Choose a stopping point. Define success. Then let your life, not your portal, carry the proof. Caregivers, I see you. You juggle appointments, portals, and pill organizers. Use this framework to protect time and energy. Consolidate lab draws into single visits when possible. Ask for early day appointments and a light breakfast beforehand if needed. Request a brief summary that ties each lab to a specific decision. You're not asking for favors. You're asking for care that respects a human life, not just a medical record. Now, a word about fear and fatigue, the 2 most common side effects of overtesting. Fear says, if we don't test, we'll miss something. Fatigue says, if we keep testing, I'll never feel like a person again. The antidote is clarity. You are not safer because you have more line items. You are safer because the right few numbers are steady. Kidneys protected, electrolytes balanced, blood count sound. A1C humane, thyroid dose right-sized, B12 adequate, and, most importantly, your days supported by habits that keep you moving, sleeping, and connecting. That's the medicine that keeps you out of emergency rooms and in the flow of your own life. Before we close, let me give you 3 questions that I want you to keep in your wallet or your phone and bring to every visit. First, given my age and overall health, what is the realistic time horizon we're treating for, and how does this lab change something within that horizon? If the time horizon is short, many screenings lose relevance. Second, if this result is abnormal, what treatment would we consider, and what are its risks for someone my age? If the treatment is riskier than the condition, the test may not be worth it. Third, are there safer ways, habits, dose adjustments, simpler medications to address the risk this lab is monitoring? You will be amazed how often the best next step is not another test, but a gentler dose, a better bedtime, a daily walk, or more protein on the plate. Here's the sentence I want you to remember and repeat. After 70, the only labs worth tracking are the ones that make your days safer, your steps steadier, and your life feel more like yours. Everything else is noise. Let that guide you. Let it quiet the urge to collect numbers for their own sake. Let it remind you that medicine is a partnership, not a protocol, that you're allowed to ask why, to ask how often, and to ask what difference it makes to the way you live. If this conversation gave you permission to simplify, take 15 minutes tonight and review your last lab report. Put a check mark next to the results that led to a helpful action. A safer dose, a steadier rhythm, a clearer morning. Put a line through the ones that only stirred worry. Write down one question you'll ask at your next visit. Share this video with a friend who is drowning in data and starving for wisdom. And if you're new here, subscribe and stay close. Each week we build practical skills for aging with vitality, strong legs, clear thinking, calm evenings, and confident decisions. You are not late. You are right on time to choose focused labs, kinder targets, and better days. I'm Dr. Julia Parker, and I'm honored to walk this path with you, one steady step, one wise decision, one meaningful test at a time.